people were telling me, like, nobody's gonna believe this. And I'm like, well, why not?
From spitting bars with the Rough Riders to gracing our TV screens, Eve's been that girl. But why did she suddenly disappear from acting? Sis had the looks, the vibe, so what really made her walk away from Hollywood? Today we're uncovering the real reason Eve left acting behind, and trust me, it's deeper than you think. But before we dive into why she quit, let's rewind, because you can't understand her exit without knowing how she entered the game.
The only thing that I know I really had at the time was tons of anxiety and tons of what I would say now is maybe depression, but we didn't use those words back then.
Eve didn't just stumble into Hollywood, she built her lane from the ground up. After dominating the rap game with Rough Riders, she used that momentum to step into acting. Her breakout moment, Barbershop in 2002. Playing Terry Jones, Eve brought a mix of attitude and vulnerability that made her a standout in a star-studded cast. The role wasn't just a cameo or a side character. Terry was central to the film's vibe, and Eve nailed it. Fans loved seeing her on screen, and critics praised her natural presence. The success of Barbershop opened more doors, proving she wasn't just a rapper trying to act, she was the real deal. And then came Eve, her self-titled sitcom that premiered in 2003. She played Shelley Williams, a young fashion designer navigating love, friendships, and career struggles in Miami. The show wasn't just a vanity project. It ran for 3 seasons on UPN, reaching audiences who might not have known Eve the rapper, but fell in love with Eve the actress. The sitcom gave her a chance to flex her comedic timing while keeping her signature sass. What made Eve stand out was that she wasn't boxed in. She was the first lady of Rough Riders, yet she wasn't trapped by hip-hop stereotypes. She was stylish, smart, and multi-talented. Whether it was music, TV, or film, she moved seamlessly between worlds. Her image wasn't just about rhymes and bars, it was about versatility. She wasn't playing by anyone's rules but her own. But while the cameras loved her, behind the scenes, things weren't as picture-perfect as they seemed on the surface. Eve had it all: platinum albums, hit movies, a TV show with her name on it. But juggling all those roles wasn't easy. Between recording music, filming episodes, promoting movies, and landing endorsement deals, she was constantly working. And with every new project came higher expectations. As she wasn't just representing herself, she carried the weight of being a female rapper in a male-dominated industry and a black woman leading a network sitcom. That's 2 industries, both filled with pressure, both demanding different versions of her. Eve once said that people wanted her to stay the pit bull in a skirt, the tough, edgy rapper they'd fallen in love with, but Hollywood wanted her polished, soft, relatable. Navigating those conflicting images wasn't just tricky, it was exhausting. Every room she walked into came with different rules. In hip-hop, she had to prove she could hang with the boy. In Hollywood, she had to prove she wasn't just a rapper trying to act. She also faced the usual grind of celebrity life: red carpets, interviews, public appearances. But all that visibility came with scrutiny. Her fashion choices, her relationships, her every move were up for public debate. And behind the glitz, she was still hustling. Recording albums, writing scripts, staying relevant in both industries at once. That kind of pace wasn't sustainable.
It was my go-to for my nerves. It was my go-to for my sadness. It was a crutch and a way to numb myself.
Behind the bright lights, Eve was dealing with anxiety. She opened up about having panic attacks at the height of her career, episodes that would hit when she least expected. Imagine being on set, surrounded by cameras, expected to deliver lines and laughs, while inside your heart's racing, your chest is tight, and your mind's spinning. That was her reality. She admitted feeling like an imposter in both spaces. In music, there were critics who questioned her credibility as a rapper once she crossed into acting. In Hollywood, she wasn't always taken seriously. Some saw her as a rapper playing dress-up instead of a true actress. That doubt from others slowly chipped away at her confidence. Anxiety made her question herself. Even with the success of Eve and Barbershop, she sometimes felt she didn't deserve the spotlight. She worried she wasn't good enough, that any moment she'd be found out as someone who didn't really belong. wrong. That mental weight followed her onto sets, into meetings, even onto red carpets. The pressure to perform wasn't just about hitting her marks, it was about proving she belonged in every room she walked into. And when you're carrying that burden day after day, it starts to wear you down. But anxiety wasn't the only thing weighing her down, because Hollywood came with its own kind of ugly.
And I remember being so scared of not drinking because I just wasn't comfortable with my feelings.
As Eve's acting career took off, she realized that Hollywood didn't always know what to do with a Black woman who wasn't willing to fit into a specific mold. For the most part, she was offered roles that fit the stereotypical sassy Black girl character, loud, tough, and often one-dimensional. While those roles weren't necessarily offensive, they were limiting. Eve was more than just a personality type. She had depth and range, and she wanted to be seen as more than just a trope. It was a tough pill to swallow. Eve was a trailblazer, one of the few women of color leading a sitcom, and she had proven herself as a capable actress in films like Barbershop. But even with all that success, the industry still saw her through the same narrow lens. Being boxed into these limited roles was frustrating for Eve, especially as she was keenly aware of her own talents and potential. She wasn't just the cool girl or the sidekick. She had the ability to take on complex, multifaceted characters, but Hollywood wasn't ready to let her. The problem of colorism in Hollywood is well documented, and it's a challenge that many Black women in the industry face. Eve, despite being a star in her own right, had to contend with a system that often prioritized lighter-skinned Black actresses or cast them in more dynamic leading roles. Eve's frustration wasn't just about the lack of diversity in roles, it was about the creative ceiling she hit despite her obvious talent. In interviews, Eve has spoken about how the roles that came her way didn't allow her to push herself creatively. She was being typecast, and it started to feel like the industry wasn't willing to take a chance on her for something deeper, something more meaningful. She wasn't getting the opportunity to portray the complex, layered characters that she wanted to. Instead, Hollywood kept casting her in roles that didn't match her potential. And while her talent deserved center stage, the industry kept pushing her to the sidelines.
So I never thought anything of it. And I also never thought that I had to hurry up and have kids because I was like, I'm gonna fall in love, I'm gonna have kids. And it just didn't happen like that.
Despite her success, Eve eventually reached a breaking point, a moment when she knew she had to step back and reconsider her career. She openly discussed feeling burnt out and uninspired by the roles she was being offered. In interviews, she revealed how the constant pressure to fit into a box combined with the lack of creative fulfillment made her question whether acting was something she could continue pursuing. At one point, she realized she wasn't enjoying the process anymore. It wasn't just about the roles that weren't inspiring her, it was about the whole experience. The long hours on set, the frustration of playing the same types of characters, and the growing feeling that she wasn't tapping into her full potential as an actress. She had achieved so much, but she wasn't creatively stimulated, and that began to eat away at her passion for the craft. Eve has mentioned how she felt like she had done everything she could in Hollywood, yet it still wasn't enough. The roles weren't growing with her, and the industry wasn't evolving in a way that allowed her to flourish. Eventually, she came to a realization. Her heart wasn't in it anymore. She was creatively unfulfilled and needed to step away to rediscover her passion. But it wasn't just the scripts or the roles, it was also what was happening in Eve's personal life that pushed her to make a bold move. Around this time, Eve's personal life was taking a major turn. She met Maximilian Cooper, the British entrepreneur and founder of Gumball 3000, and the two quickly became inseparable. In 2014, they got married, and Eve embraced her new role as a stepmom to Maximilian's children. This shift in her personal life brought a new perspective on what really mattered. Eve wasn't just focused on her career anymore. She was beginning to prioritize her family, and that included stepping away from the limelight. In 2019, Eve announced she was expecting her first child with Maximilian. This marked a significant turning point for her. As she transitioned into motherhood, Eve realized that she didn't want to be constantly in the public eye. The desire to create a peaceful, fulfilling life with her family was growing stronger than any need for fame. She had accomplished so much, but now the most important thing to her was being present for her family. This desire to focus on family and step away from the spotlight wasn't about rejecting her past successes, it was about shifting her priorities. Eve wanted more than the Hollywood hustle. She wanted to raise her child, be a supportive partner, and build a life outside of the flashing cameras and endless scripts. Eve's decision to walk away from Hollywood was more than just stepping back from acting. It was about choosing peace over the constant. In interviews, she's reflected on how her career, while full of success, left her feeling burnt out and unfulfilled. For her, walking away was about creating space for happiness and peace, away from the pressures that came with being in the spotlight. She prioritized her well-being, her family, and her own happiness over the hustle of Hollywood. Eve didn't disappear completely, though. But she made small returns to music and TV, like her role in the Queen's TV show and the occasional performance. These returns weren't about diving back into the industry full-time, but more about reconnecting with the creative side of herself that she loved. It was clear she wasn't done with music or performance, but her approach had changed. Now she does it on her own terms, in ways that bring her joy, not stress. So what do you guys think about Eve's decision to leave acting behind? Would you like to see her back on screen, or is she living her best life exactly where she is? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.